All right. Welcome in, everybody, to the deep dive. We're going to be tackling a pretty fascinating concept here.
Yeah.
Starting really small,
Yeah,
but with potentially huge results. You ready to get into this?
I'm ready.
All right. So our source material this time kicks things off by talking about the idea of a quark.
Okay.
You know those tiny particles that everything is made of.
Right, right. The fundamental building blocks.
And it poses this really cool question to you, to the
Ah.
listener. What's something incredibly small
Mhm.
that has actually had a big impact on your life?
I like that. That's a good way to start.
Yeah,
Just gets you thinking right away
right off the bat.
about those little things that can set off big changes.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really what we're going to be looking at today,
Yeah.
like how those seemingly insignificant actions,
Right.
especially when they're driven by things we really care about,
Mm.
can actually snowball into something really substantial.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into that. That's a powerful idea.
So one of the core things our source kind of zeroes in on is this distinction between being driven by what we genuinely enjoy,
Okay.
that intrinsic motivation,
Right, right.
versus always chasing those external rewards,
Mm-hmm.
like the validation or the instant payoff.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in that for sure.
And the source even says that like a sole focus on that external stuff can actually like mess up our mentality
Oh, I see what you mean.
when we don't see those results right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because you're constantly looking for that external validation. You're not really finding the joy in the process itself.
Exactly.
It can be kind of a trap.
So the source really puts a lot of weight on dedicating time to things we actually find fulfilling,
Right.
regardless of what comes out of it immediately
Mm.
or even how long it might take to see the results.
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Yeah. It's about that satisfaction you get just from doing it.
Exactly. Like, think about a hobby that you do just because you love it.
Yeah.
Even if you're not like a pro or anything.
Right.
It's that inherent enjoyment the source is talking about.
Yeah, you're not doing it for the likes or the praise or whatever.
Yep. Purely for the love of it.
It's the love of the game, not just the final score.
Exactly.
But at the same time, the source does say that, if something absolutely doesn't work,
Uh-huh.
it might be wise to like make tweaks and maybe adjust your approach a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not about just blindly pushing forward if you're hitting a wall constantly.
Right, yeah. You need to recognize when it's time to pivot or change things up.
So it's a balance, staying true to your core drive,
Uh-huh.
but also being flexible in your methods. I like that.
Yeah. Now, kind of building on that whole idea of like, focusing on what we genuinely care about.
Okay.
The source makes this really powerful statement. Ready for this?
Hit me.
If we really care about the goal at hand, as if it embodies who we are and wish to become better at it, then simply placing the effort in should be more than enough fight another day. Consistency is key.
Whoa, that's powerful.
Right, like that really resonated with me.
Yeah, it makes you think.
When our aspirations are so deeply tied to who we are and how we want to grow, the effort we put in becomes like its own reward.
Hmm.
And the source is saying that consistency, that's the engine that keeps it all
I
going.
see that, like compound interest, but for your effort, those small, consistent actions add up over time.
Exactly. And the source actually uses this great phrase. It says, we should determine our fate with a barrage of efforts and not just our short-sighted results.
Ooh, I like that. A barrage of efforts.
So it's not about getting discouraged by setbacks or a lack of instant wins.
Yeah, it's a long game, trusting in the process.
It's about that long-term vision. And to kind of bring this to life, the source uses this great analogy.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It says, imagine a tiny domino tipping over a much larger one, setting off a chain reaction leading to something massive.
Wow, that's a perfect visual. I can see it.
Right. It just perfectly captures how these small beginnings can have like truly enormous consequences.
Like that initial nudge, seemingly insignificant, but it sets off a whole cascade. Each domino adds to the momentum.
Yeah.
And then boom, you have this huge impact, way bigger than the initial force.
It makes you think about like, what are those tiny dominoes in your own life?
That's a good question.
Like maybe it's a small habit you've been working on or a conversation you started.
Yeah, or a little bit of effort you've been putting in consistently.
Maybe you can't see the impact right away, but when you look
Mhm.
back, you can often trace it back to those small actions.
Absolutely. It's like planting seeds. You might not see the tree right away, but with consistent care, it grows into something magnificent.
And this isn't just personal either.
Right.
We see this in like science and social movements.
Oh, absolutely. Think about scientific breakthroughs. They often come after years of small, incremental discoveries.
Yeah, or businesses that start from like a tiny idea and explode into something huge.
It's those foundational steps, those building blocks that pave the way for the big transformations.
So our source actually pulls in a really cool quote here from Volodymyr Zelensky to add another layer to this.
Oh, okay.
He says, "We want to determine our history by ourselves, in peace, calm, and honesty."
Hmm.
Interesting choice.
Now you might be thinking, how does that relate to quarks and dominoes?
Yeah, at first glance, it doesn't seem like a direct connection.
But if you look deeper, it's all about that desire to control your own destiny,
Oh,
right?
I see it.
And how that connects back to the power of these consistent, intrinsically motivated actions we've been talking about.
Yeah, it's about taking ownership, shaping your own narrative.
Exactly. And determining our history is all about those consistent efforts over time, leading to those big results. Right. And those values he mentioned, peace, calm, and honesty, they act as the guiding principles.
Yeah, those become the fuel for that consistent effort.
It's like choosing the direction of your own domino chain.
Exactly. It's about making those choices based on your internal compass, rather than being swayed by external pressures or just chasing the next quick reward.
It's a powerful way to think about it.
It's about those small, everyday actions. They become deliberate steps in crafting your own story.
They're those tiny dominoes that can ultimately lead to something amazing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, that image of the dominoes really sticks with me.
Yeah, me too.
Even the tiniest efforts, those Quark-like actions, can create a massive impact, especially when they're driven by what we truly care about.
Right, when we find that intrinsic motivation. And don't forget that consistency is key.
It's all about trusting that process and realizing that even the smallest beginnings can lead to something truly extraordinary.
I love that. Trusting the process.
And I think it all comes back to that question the source asked at the beginning.
So, yeah.
What's something small that's had a big impact on your life?
That's a good one to reflect on.
Maybe listening to this deep dive has given you a whole new perspective on that.
I hope so.
So as a final thought, and kind of building on what Zelensky was talking about,
Okay.
think about this. How are your daily actions, those small things you do, especially those driven by your core values, contributing to the bigger picture of your life?
Yeah, that's a great question to leave our listeners with.
What kind of history are you creating for yourself, one tiny domino at a time?
I love that.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely. It was a good one.
Until next time.
See you later.